All right, fine, here we go. Welcome to ThursdAI. I'm your oh-so-enthusiastic host, Alex, here to bring you the latest in AI. Today we've got some thrilling or not news for you, from OpenAI's announcements to whatever else is on the agenda. So grab your coffee or don't, and let's get this over with. Ugh.
Woo! Welcome to ThursdAI, everyone. Welcome ThursdAI. April 3rd, not April 1st. Nobody to be fooled. April 3rd. Welcome, folks. My name is Alex Volkov. As always, I'm an AI evangelist with Weights and Biases. I'm your host for today. And there's so much to cover today that hopefully we'll get through all of it. But there's a bunch of open source. A very, very exciting week. One of these weeks where I started by being very busy at work. I'm going to tell you some of the stuff that I did at work that relate to ThursdAI as well. And I was playing with the native image mode of GPT, like all of us probably, like the 130 million people that used it in the past week. And I was playing with ChatGPT. I was doing some stuff. I was learning. I wasn't like really, obviously I was paying attention to everything that happens. And then yesterday, when I prepared my notes for the show, I looked at a mountain of updates that we need to go through, just like an absolute mountain, a bunch of open source stuff, a bunch of big companies stuff. OpenAI is about to be open again, folks. We're going to cover this as well, but apparently OpenAI is about to open source something soon, and you can even sign up for a thing. And they talk about this being like, basically we've been waiting for it. Finally, we got some updates for them as well. And a lot to cover this week, but this is why we're here, to keep you up to date. For those of you who are new to the show, a brief housekeeping, I don't know what to call this. ThursdAI is brought to you by Weights and Biases. We don't have other sponsors. Everything we talk about here, unless we specify in advance or during the thing, nothing is sponsored. We just love folks we bring on and the people we talk to. And the motto is we stay up to date so you don't have to. And that's been the deal with ThursdAI for the past 2 years. Today is show number 99. And so our next show is going to be 100th episode, at least according to Substack, which we have. And if you go on Substack, you find ThursdAI, please subscribe and share with your friends. At least according to Substack, today is show 99, which is crazy to me that we did 100 shows, because there were a lot of streams that weren't planned. We did some streams on Friday that didn't count as an episode. But officially on Substack, since we started posting, we're up to 100 shows. We also crossed... And here I will use some of my audio effects. I just noticed that we've crossed 100,000 downloads, at least on Substack, so we crossed more. This is crazy to me that 100,000 downloads of our episodes has been around for the last 2 years, and many people write to me and write to my friends and write to my colleagues and say, hey, ThursdAI is something we listen to every week. This fills me with a lot of joy as well, but also a lot of commitment to keep this professional for you guys and make sure that this is high signal and not fluff. And this is also a point for me to invite feedback. If you have any type of feedback about how to improve the show, as listeners, as community members of ThursdAI, I would welcome it, and thank you for participating in the community. With this, how about we start with our TLDR? All right, folks, we are at the TLDR. So this is everything we're going to talk about outside of breaking news. Okay, so we will also have breaking news, but this is everything that we're going to talk about on ThursdAI. So I want to run through this just in case you won't be here for the next 2 hours or so. So you don't want to miss any part of this. Everything also will be in the show notes as well. All these links, I'm sending them every week in the show notes on ThursdAI.news. So if you're missing any part of that, you shouldn't be worried about, oh, I don't have a link. All the links and everything you'll receive in your inbox if you're subscribed. So I recommend you subscribe to this. We'll start the show with open source. There's a bunch of stuff in open source LLMs. The first big one that we're going to chat about is OpenAI is about to be OpenAI. Get it? They're about to open source a reasoning model, apparently. Sam Altman posted something like, tada, we're about to open source something. We assume it's a reasoner. I don't know if they 100% confirm it, but I've seen like multiple folks talk about this. So we will talk about that. They didn't open source yet, but we'll cover it. They did open source some other stuff though. So OpenAI also open sourced Paperbench, a new benchmark, a new eval that actually goes to show how awesome they are in doing, because they released an eval where they are not the leader. Claude is the leader there. So we're going to talk about Paperbench. Paperbench is super cool. We'll also cover Dream 7B. It's a diffusion model. Do you guys remember we talked about diffusion language models? So we're going to talk about this diffusion model soon. It's Dream 7B is like the claimed state-of-the-art diffusion model. Yam was very particularly excited about this, so I'm looking forward to hear from Yam about this model as well. We also have OpenHands 32B, a fine-tune from Quen. And for this, we'll have a guest. I see Xingyao, I'm hoping I pronounced this correctly, Xingyao Wang from OpenHands. You guys remember OpenHands? We've talked with OpenHands about their coding agent, and now they also released a model, and there's like also a cloud offering. So we're going to chat about this with Xingyao very soon. Then we will also talk about, it's not in my notes, but I have Zach here. We're going to talk about Nomic's multimodal embed, which I have Zach Nussbaum, who's been on the show before. He's going to join and chat to us about how they've trained a state-of-the-art multimodal model for embedding PDFs, which is super cool. Then, in the big companies, LLMs and APIs, we obviously have to mention, although these prices, like these tickers don't make sense anymore, OpenAI raised an additional $40 billion at a $300 billion valuation, which is more than Coca-Cola and other big companies, more than Disney, more like a bunch of other stuff. OpenAI is on track to become like a $1 trillion valuation company, and also to cross 1 billion users. So that's insane. They also have this new Monday voice, which we will talk with. Monday is super cool. I don't know if you guys chatted with the emo ChatGPT yet, but it's pretty cool. So basically, Amazon announced this Nova Act, which is a computer use API. We're going to chat about this as well. There's a new benchmark from Math Arena called USAMO, so Math Olympiad. And up until Gemini 2.5, none of the models get more than 5%. Gemini crushed it. And we're going to chat about what this means with 24%. So Gemini 2.5 on this one benchmark, compared to every other big model out there, gets 24%. Everybody else gets less than 5%. We have to try to figure out what's here. And then also there's a new update from CoreWeave and NVIDIA where they announced like 800 tokens per second for Llama 400B on their new MLPerf like 5 benchmark or something. So we're going to chat about this as well. That to me is crazy, just absolutely crazy. 800 tokens per second for Llama 405B. In this week's buzz, I now call this week's buzz MCP coverage as well, because to me they're combined. We're leaning so hard into MCP, and I want to like just keep telling you about this. I have an update. I have a request for you as well. I have a whole story to tell you about MCP in this week's buzz, something that I'm leading personally in Weights and Biases, and I'm very excited about and really want to share with you. And also, yeah, so this week's buzz this week is worth waiting for. We're probably going to do it an hour in, and I will talk to you about MCP observability, which is a thing that I think that needs to exist, and I hope to convince you that it's a thing that needs to exist as well. Vision and video category has been crazy this week because Runway started this week with announcing Gen 4, and Runway has been in the video generation game since Gen 1, Gen 2, Gen 3. Gen 4 looks absolutely ridiculous, and we'll show some example videos. It just looks so good, and I've seen a lot of creators already play with this model. Do you guys remember OmniHuman from ByteDance? On the show, you may remember, so OmniHuman is this like avatar creating model from ByteDance that they announced but didn't release. Finally, it's available. It's available via the DreamInnovo website, and we're going to chat about that. But not only that, there's another contender that we haven't talked about called Hedro Labs that I've used, and recently many people use as well because they want to animate their image generation from ChatGPT. So I'm going to show you both OmniHuman and Hedro Labs and show you kind of the comparison that I think is worth looking at. Now, basically, both of them receive an image and some audio, and then they generate the avatar. So it's not like a lip sync where you take a video. And then we also want to, in this era as well. We want to chat about Mocha from Meta, which is a movie-grade talking character synthesis, and this absolutely looks just insane. Just absolutely. Some of them cross the uncanny valley for me very easily, so we're definitely going to show this. Folks who are only listening, you'll get from the context when you need to tune into the video, so don't worry, you can go about your day and just listen. Once we get to the video, though, this specific segment, vision and video, is going to be very visual and very obvious that it's worth watching. So definitely worth watching as well. If you're listening to the podcast, by the way, I have now recently started embedding the live show that we have. So the thing that people are watching right now, hey folks, at the top of the newsletter. So if you are listening to the show and you actually want to see some parts of it, the YouTube show is going to be with chapters, so you can skip to the exact chapter that you want. And that link is on the top of the Substack for you to find super quick. In voice and audio, I have two updates here. Gladia, our friends from Gladia, a French company that does transcription models that always try to beat Whisper, they just decided that they announced that they released Solaria, which is, they call a best-in-class AI transcription model and translation as well. It's super, super fast. We're going to chat about this as well. And Hylio Minimax Audio Speech O2. That's a mouthful. Hylio AI is a company that has a video model, and honestly, they have a bunch of other models. Their audio, though, I've talked to you about their audio, to me, is the best by far. People still think it's 11 Labs because 11 Labs has the better brand, but you guys know that I bring you the nitty-gritty of AI, and Hylio is absolutely much better as far as I'm concerned in audio. They have emotional speech, they have voice cloning that is crazy good, and they have long context as well. So long text, you can send up to 30,000 characters in there. You can generate like almost a whole podcast in there. The voices are crazy, the cloning is crazy, the emotional control they have is unparalleled. Not open source at all, but Speech O2 from Minimax is definitely great. AI art in diffusion, we should just mention that the whole world became AI artists because more than 130 million people have used and generated over 700 million images with ChatGPT since last week. We're coming up on 1 billion images generated with ChatGPT since last week, and especially in India as well. It looks like India is onboarding super hard on ChatGPT. I don't have any other news in AI art. We'll see if something comes up. But folks who are listening from the AI art community would love to know from you if there's any news that I missed, because I know that this field is very hot. And oh yeah, I see already. So potentially we'll see like a new Midjourney today. Thank you, Colleen. There's been talk about new Midjourney as well. Then in the tool section, in the last section that we're going to talk about, I want to shout out our friends from Windsurf. If you guys remember, we had Kevin here from Windsurf talk about Cascade and why Windsurf agents, etc., is better. I use Windsurf since then. I really like it. They added a new bunch of releases, including deployment. So now from Windsurf, you can actually deploy your stuff, which is super, super cool. And they're gunning for the Bolt and the Lovable type of products that we also covered. And then also Notebook LM adds discoverability of sources. So in Notebook LM, the thing that generates the podcast from Google, yeah, you guys remember, you no longer have to bring your own sources. You bring some sources and it discovers other sources for you, which is pretty cool. So folks, this is our TLDR. With this, I want to welcome LDJ to the stage. LDJ, welcome, man. It's been a minute since we've seen you. How are you? How are you doing? Let's jump into the open source stuff.
Yep, let's do it.
How you been, man?
I've been pretty good. How about yourself?
Very good. All right. I think with this, we're going to start with open source. We're going to invite a few folks here to the stage. But before, we'll just do the open source opening, folks. Let's get it. Open source AI. Let's get it started, folks. And now we are welcoming multiple folks. So you guys know we have LDJ the co-host. Thank you, LDJ, for joining. And now we have two more folks to welcome. We're welcoming Zach Nussbaum. Not your first time on the show. You've been here before. Welcome. I think not in video form, though. So welcome. Great to see you, Zach. Zach, you work at Nomic, correct?
Yep, that's correct. Thanks again for having me.
Absolutely. It's always a pleasure to have you on. And we also have Xiang Wang from OpenAI.
Yeah.
So OpenHands, the company, OpenHands, the AI coding agent. You guys also released something super cool this week. So would love to chat and hear from you what that's about and what you trained. But I think just by order of who's been here first and who I invited first, we'll start with the Nomic stuff. And Zach, I think that you guys have an announcement this week. Not the first time that you guys are announcing things on ThursdAI, but I would love to hear from you directly what we're talking about and talk through the details.
Yeah, thanks again for having me. Always fun to chat about the cool research that we've been up to and doing a cool show like that you guys have. But yeah, released a Nomic Embed Multimodal, state-of-the-art embedding model that allows you to embed image, text interleaved. Previously, most multimodal embedding models required two encoders. So like clip style, you'd have a separate text encoder and a separate vision encoder. But a lot of the problems would be that your modalities would get embedded separately. It would require you to have two separate vector stores, one for your image vectors and one for your text vectors. We took a bunch of our learnings from training high-performing text embedding models and applied this to the multimodal work that the great folks that led the Copoly team and the DSC work. I think Manuel, and I'm forgetting the DSC lead's team name. But yeah, we basically built on top of great open source work, and we've released two really great Apache 2 licensed 7B embedding models that are state of the art. Nomic is the top of the leaderboard for, I'm going to butcher the name of the leaderboard, but video retrieval or visual retrieval.
This one, Vidori
Yes.
V2?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're top of the leaderboard there with our multi-vector or later interaction model. So this leverages a lot of the same approaches that Colbert models use. And then we also have a dense model, just Nomic Embed Multimodal 7B, which outperforms all other single vector multimodal and embedding models.
That's so cool. So first of all, thanks for coming up and talking to us about this. And huge congrats on the state-of-the-art embedding models. I want to talk to you about sizes for a little bit, okay? 3 billion and 7 billion parameters for both these Nomic and Nomic Embed Multimodal. What is the difference between the two? Like, how do folks select which ones they want?
Yeah, so the 7B, both these models are built off top of the Qwen 2.5 VL. The 7B comes with an Apache 2 license, and you'll get slightly better performance. The 3Bs, I believe they are under a Qwen license. So I think for research purposes, it's all good, but I think for any commercial purposes, it falls under a non-commercial license. With the single vector models as well, the embedding dimension is slightly larger for the 7B, but you also get a decent performance boost. So it all depends on your compute setup. I think right now, most people on Apple computers or CPUs can run 7B parameter models fairly well. Nice thing about this is you're not generating any tokens auto-regressively. You're just outputting a single vector. It should be faster than if you were running the Qwen VL through generation. We also have some demos later in the blog post. I can also drop them in the chat as well, showing how to use both the multi-vector late interaction model and single vector model.
That's awesome. One more question I have for you, Zach. Embedding models, we talked about embedding models with the backbone of like Mistral, for example. And this is the first time that I remember that we talked about like huge embedding models. And by huge, in the small LLM category, but huge compared to embedding models. Embedding models, they are tiny in the hundreds of millions of parameters. How should folks choose? Like, why go all the way to 7B when there is the performance that much better so that folks need to actually run like a 7 billion parameter model? Or is it more useful for folks to run like a very small, very quick model? Because sometimes for embeddings, maybe when you create the vector store, that speed doesn't necessarily matter because that's kind of offline when you create it, maybe update this. But at query time, right, when the user drops something, you want to do like a search, you want to embed that like super quick. So maybe for that, you want like a much faster model. How are you guys thinking about what are the best practices in using like smaller or bigger models?
Yeah, this is a really good question. I think it gets to the crux of a lot of the things that we've been thinking about when we're training our models. You bring up a good point about query time, right? If you have a larger model and this is in your RAG pipeline, you don't want your retriever to be the bottleneck in your pipeline, which is why I think we tend to aim for smaller models, and it allows you to also run these models on device, on consumer hardware. Another practical consideration is the dimension of your embedding. So with larger models, your output dimension gets larger and you pay a linear increase in memory compared to a 1B and 150 million parameter model, like you're paying a 2 or 3x increase in memory, which adds up when you have a lot of data, right? And you have millions to hundreds of millions of documents. One challenge I think right now that exists in the open source ecosystem is I think there's potentially I don't think that there's many high-performing VLMs out there that are under 3 billion. In general, right now, I think that choosing the best model for multimodal data, I think requires you to have a very high-performing and strong VLM base.
Which is Qwen 2.5 VL. And
Yeah.
shout out to our friends from Alibaba Qwen, by the way. Shout out to Jungyang, Johan, and like the whole team for this just incredible workhorse of the industry, because like many folks, this is what they're now building on top of. And Zach, thank you so much for coming up, because connected to this, the next thing that we're going to talk about is also a Qwen thing. Zach, feel free to drop or stick around with us if you want. We are going to move to talk about the next part, which is also Qwen fine-tune, I believe. Xingyao, would you like to present yourself? This is your first time on the show. We've had Graham before, but this is your first time on the show. Would you like to present yourself first, and then we're going to talk about what you guys released?
Yeah, sure, definitely. Hey everyone, I'm Xingyao. I'm a co-founder of OpenHands and also like early contributor of OpenHands as the open source project we are building.
Yeah, so OpenHands, once you guys launched it, I believe it was also Jungyang related to this. I remember like Jungyang posted, let's do some OpenHands stuff, and then the community started from this. And then and then you guys actually took it into the whole thing. So we've covered all hands before. We've covered OpenHands, which started as Open Devin, I believe, if I remember correctly. Right? So folks, if you guys remember Devin the coder, where's Devin now? I don't know, but not even in the ranks. But fine. But that kind of excitement about like a coding agent, I don't know, they got like a crazy variation, got folks to think, hey, we can build this in the open. And then folks started contributing, as you did as well. And then afterwards, All Hands came around as a company as well, which you are a co-founder of, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, awesome.
3 of us met through the open source. Right after the day of Devin release, we have Open Devin, and then we just jump into the community simultaneously.
That is so cool. And I remember we talked about Open Devin program before, and then we covered like a month later. The reason why you are here is because this week you guys also have some news. I would love to hear from you what you guys announced and discussed this week. I think you have 2 updates.
Yeah, definitely. The first update we have is we have this OpenHands LM release, which is more about a research preview, but like we got some encouraging preliminary result. We got about 37.2% on sweep bench verify, which kind of the performance is comparable to model with 20 times more parameter, for example, like DeepSeek. So one complaint I heard from community members is like we lack like a decent open source model that people can just self-host it and run for themselves. So this is actually like our first attempt here. So
let me just recap this for folks, because I find it super incredible. You guys started as a ragtag of folks on GitHub doing some open source stuff to try to replicate Devin. Then you became a company, and then you released one of the best performing agents for software engineering that's now like one of the best performing ones. And we're going to talk about Open Live Sweep Bench in a second that you guys are also topping. And then we've chatted about like OpenHands as an idea. And then now you're releasing a model, like a full language model, a fine-tune on top of Qwen 2.5 as well, right? Which is
2.5 coder.
Yeah, 32 billion parameter coding model specifically that gets very high performance on multiple things. So let's talk about some of the parameters. Folks love to hear the numbers.
Yeah, definitely. So primary number we are chasing here is specifically on bench verify, which we are getting about 37.2. For example, the latest DeepSeek got about 38% within the OpenHands harness. So this is more about customizing the Qwen model towards OpenHands specific use cases rather than trying to improve its underlying capability from all dimensions.
Yeah. So you're fine tuning. You have a specific benchmark that you're dropping. Are you being careful at not overfitting for this one benchmark? Could you talk about, because folks always say when there's one higher param on some eval than others, there's the scare that some data is leaking. How are you guys being like careful about not having the sweep bench stuff actually in the training data?
Oh yeah, that's definitely a very big concern for people. So actually we have a research paper called Switching. So this is in collaboration with some folks at Berkeley and stuff. So we actually built like 2,438 real world tasks grounded in GitHub code base. So in this switching repository, we make sure that there's no overlap between switching and sweepbench. So there's like definitely no data contamination. We are not training on the test set. So yeah, and then we actually set up a environment for all of this repository. Basically, we make sure that those units can run within the Docker images. So in training time, we simply run OpenHands on a lot of these tasks. And then basically OpenHands will generate a bunch of agent trajectories to solve the given task. By the end, we just run the unit tests to see if some of the trajectory already solves the task, then we simply train on those successful trajectories. And then the OpenHands LM release is simply a scale-up version of the paper. In the paper, we find that if we are only training with 500 trajectory on 32 billion model with 2K context window, we can already get like a 13% result rate improvement on the 32 billion model. And then the interesting thing we found is like switching
13% improvement on top of the Quen that's already good at coding.
Yeah, I think the caveat there is like the good at coding doesn't necessarily means they are good at a coding agent style, because coding agent style is more about multi-turn tool use. I think it's not 100% related to the coding capability of the agent, rather about whether the agent is able to, for example, self-correct itself when it runs into some errors, or how to properly use tools to basically edit files. So those are the actual things we are targeting in improving, at least in this version of OpenHands LM.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think
because we already believe Quen is like already pretty strong at the generating code. So
yeah. I think the distinction is very important. LDJ, like we should definitely like pause here and talk about this. Coding ability does not necessarily mean real world ability. That's why SwiBench exists. That's why SwiLancer exists, which I believe SwiLancer translates tasks from Upwork and actually gives them a specific price, and then SwiLancer from also OpenAI adjust how much money would this agent be able to get from the pool of tasks within Upwork. And so I think that like you're absolutely right. There's also like fill in the middle, there's tool use, there's like a bunch of stuff. Shinya, I want to ask you, you mentioned you guys are testing for agents' ability or like the model's ability to like self-correct. We are now in the third like expansion laws, whatever, with test time compute, which is basically the ability of the model to get the aha moment and realize it's wrong and try to correct itself. You didn't release a reasoning model. Have you guys played with reasoning traces at all, of trying to like fine tune, etc., for this effort? Like, how do you think about that aspect of self-correctness from perspective of there's a whole crop of models now that do this?
Yeah, that's a great question. We actually have one preprint earlier where we study a bunch of like reasoning models in like agentic context. So one thing we found, at least for now, most reasoning models today aren't really good at agentic stuff. So they are just like living in their own dreams. For example, they would just say that inside their reasoning context, they will say, okay, I want to open this file. And then they will hallucinate like contents of that file and then just execute a bunch of commands and it successfully solve the task. So that's still one thing. But I think we've definitely seen things getting much better with OpenAI's most recent O3 Mini, where they actually train the calling along with the reasoning task. So I think going forward, I think the critical thing is you need to balance the capability from both reasoning tasks as well as calling. Because if you're only training on problem of competitive coding and math problem, is like the problem description is self-contained. Basically, all you need to do is think really hard to find a solution. But like for coding agent, you are given a GitHub issue, and the agent actually needs to go out there into the GitHub repository and execute a bunch of commands to gather information before they need to start thinking. Yeah. So I think that there is like a gap there. I think we need to bridge them before we can see like a reasoning model become like exceptionally useful for coding agents.
So to speak to this, I want to talk about, obviously there's the SwiBench verified, which we've talked about. Weights and biases used to be the number one agent generally on the top there. And now recently this week we've been beaten by a little bit, but those like agents do like multiple traces. You guys have been on the top there as well. I remember, Graham, you're also still like runners, but there's a new SwiBench like benchmark that I wanted to talk about as well, called Live SwiBench from the folks from LiveBench. We covered, supported by Abacus AI. And Live SwiBench just launched, and it's kind of like a different attempt at these things. And Live SwiBench has you guys on the second, like almost on top. And all these models, they don't use the model that we just talked about, the OpenHands 32B. All these models, they use Claude, I believe 3.7 as VLM. And I think this is new, like literally from today. I want to congratulate you guys on taking the second step here. And the reason why is basically what you just talked about, right? Is because just coding ability is not enough. This is like the instrumentation, the tool calling, the kind of the reasoning, the stuff that you built in maybe with prompts. Could you maybe add more reasons of why you guys are at the top and not like Windsurf, for example? Windsurf is also like doing great work in like agentic stuff. Could you speculate as to why you guys getting average of 46% and let's say Cloud Code, which everybody loves, which like Anthropic trained and it's their own thing, gets like 39 on this task and you guys getting like 46, so almost more than 7 points difference. Could you speculate as to why you guys are so good at this benchmark?
Yeah, definitely. So I think one primary difference between like Sweet Agent and OpenHands versus like other competitor here is like we have a dedicated runtime, which is like a containerized like a sandbox environment where the agent can actually run command and execute command. So I think like a cursor or Windsurf, like that might not be easy because you are actually running command on user's machine and you certainly don't want to destroy user's machine, but like that restriction is not there within OpenHands system. So I would probably suspect that like one thing is because OpenHands is free to edit file as well as try to reproduce the bug and running command just to try to figure out what's actually going wrong there and then running a bunch of unit tests. Yeah, and I guess another thing is I think because in our development flow, we are actually trying to build OpenHands into a shape where it can resolve GitHub issue for us. So OpenHands is actually improving OpenHands itself, and we use it constantly. Nice. So it's like unintentionally we optimize the agent towards that direction where it solves tasks as GitHub issue. So that might also have some unintended effect.
I guess that makes perfect sense to me, that explanation specifically, because Live SweBench and SweBench Verified, those are GitHub tasks. For folks who don't know who they are, those are GitHub tasks that people collected. They have a very specific solution, and basically the models need to get to the solution. And then if you optimize OpenHands for that work specifically, unlike, for example, Windsurf, which is like generally built for open coding things, like you just code everything with Windsurf, and so it's like maybe optimized for that. So Windsurf is still getting a very high score here. Copilot is getting a high score, Cursor as well. Very interesting that Aider is getting a lower score. Maybe Aider is optimized for like in place in Filament. One last thing, Xingyao, you also had a cloud announcement, I believe. I want to give you guys the chance to also announce that, and then we'll move on to other things. But feel free to kind of shout out the friends who worked on this and then kind of share your thing. That's very welcome here for friends of the pod, which you guys are.
Yeah, definitely. So now everybody can just log into app.allhands.app, and then you can just use OpenHands from your browser. We give everybody like $50 in free credits, and there's like a higher rate limit on Anthropic credits, and we have you are able to kick off like OpenHands conversation with your phone or inside GitHub. Basically, you can just tag it any sort of GitHub issues, and you just go out and fix it for you, or you can just log into the web and then select a GitHub repo to get started, and then just ask it to like basically fix merge conflicts and doing like chore stuff you don't want to do it yourself. So OpenHands like was also designed as a generalist agent, but like we just use it to resolve GitHub issues.
That's awesome. Folks, go to app.all-hands.dev and then you'll get $50 credits. We're not sponsored, we're just like level hands, and they're absolutely one of the best coding agents right now for solving GitHub issues. Definitely go and give this a try. And you also trained your own model, which, what is the license? Just remind me.
Everything's MIT.
Everything's MIT, which is great. Xingyao, thank you so much for coming up and talking to us about.
Thanks for having me.
We'll need to move on because we have a bunch of stuff to cover. But folks, definitely give All Hands a try. OpenHands is like a super cool project. Cheers, Xingyao. Thank you so much for coming up. And we want to welcome Yam as well. Yam, welcome. How are you, man? How are you doing?
I'm fine. I wanted to talk to the guy. He did some bunch of stuff, but no time.
We'll catch him next time. They're friends of the pod, definitely. LDJ, how are you doing, man? What do you think about their effort on fine-tuning?
Yeah, I've been good. And yeah, I think it's really important to have these different frameworks and not only just continue advancing and using newer coding benchmarks, but also just like in general, yeah, for OpenHands and All Hands. But what you have on the screen now too, I mean, this is really interesting. And I saw this yesterday. Yeah, go on, Alex.
I'm just saying that there's folks who are only listening. So let's describe this.
Oh, sure.
I'm excited to talk to both of you about this specific thing.
Yeah, so we want to move on to the Dream diffusion
let's
model.
Talk about Dream. Yep.
Okay, yeah, this model here, it's called, I think it stands for Diffusion Reasoning Model. I think they just take the first few letters of each of those words and then they end up with Dream. But they call this a diffusion reasoning model, and apparently, based on these benchmarks that Alex has up on the screen right now, this is getting generally popular benchmarks, but they're starting to be less used nowadays because they're so easy for the frontier models. But ArcE and ArcC, it's getting 10% or more compared to models like higher than Qwen 2.57b, higher than Llama 3 8b, higher than Mistral 7b. And even just like in Big Bench Hard, even in benchmarks like MMLU, it's really impressive.
Yeah, human eval is also up there, 60-ish%, almost 55. But what is interesting about this is that it's diffusion, right? So could you like clarify for folks who are not following this closely, what is the difference between this and like Qwen 2.5 7B?
Yeah, so there's different ways to do language diffusion, but in general, people mostly remember diffusion from the main way that image models are doing things. And so the difference between autoregression, which is what language models usually do, versus diffusion, is autoregression is essentially you have the typical, you're generating one token after another, one word after another. Whereas diffusion is much more often doing everything in parallel all at once, and that might look something like in images starting out with a bunch of noise and then doing diffusion steps where for each step you do, it's making the whole image clearer and better and closer to the goal. And here what Alex has up on the screen as well is for language, it's like a bunch of random words or tokens are showing up from different parts of the output. So like things from the last paragraph and the first paragraph all showing up around the same time, and it's constantly filling in the gaps just for each step that happens.
I found this like crazy to me. We're humans, we're sequential. We think about the story and we write it like from the beginning of the sentence to the end. That's how we learn. And this is how autoregressive models also, they predict like next tokens. This thing just doesn't like, I see how this could be good for, I don't know, an image model, but for language and the fact that it works, and for code, the fact that it works just breaks my mind, because the model can generate the last word in the sentence or in the paragraph before the second word. It don't make sense. What's exciting about this to you, Jan? Why are you guys so excited about like this?
Look, I can talk about this for hours if you really want to. What I'm saying is that many times you need to use the language models in real life, like for coding and so on, and you need to use them like somehow let them, okay, edit this part of the code. The thing is that they're not built for that. They're predicting a next token. So the tricks everyone like is doing is like putting, I don't know, some marker somewhere, and then they predict after the text, and then you like move it by yourself, or tell the model to what string would you like to replace, and then they output a string to replace, and replace by what, and then you go, this is how cursor and windsurf, all sorts of tricks. The thing is that it's not native. If you think about it, it's not really native. It's like too many steps. Diffusion in two words. The thing is that images there are many combinations of colors, you can say, way more colors on your screen than there are tokens, the types of tokens. So at the end of the day, diffusion models work well mostly on data which is continuous, like images, like pixels and so on. When it comes to text, they haven't shown this level of success yet until this paper. And what is interesting about this is that if you look at the results, it doesn't really matter how the results are obtained, like what exactly do you diffuse. Getting to these results is incredible. It's on par with models of this size. I cannot stress this enough. There are some projects that are just waiting for someone to back them up. And they're so important that if they work, they're going to be massive. And this is one of them. Because if you 10x this to 7 dB and you maintain the same level of performance, everyone can use this on their cursor at home. All of a sudden, it starts to make sense. And so it's very important. I just want to say it's a completely different concept, and first time where we see some method that starts to shine, might even be competitive. Amazing, seriously, amazing, absolutely.
So this is so awesome. I just want to highlight a few things here. They're beating other models in this same category. So Llama 3 8B, Qwen 2.5 7B, Mistral 7B is here, DeepSeek 7B is also here. They're fairly competitive on benchmarks with all of them. One thing we talk about is human eval. Human here is at 57%, so state of the art across these small models as well. Only Qwen 2.5 comes as close. But they have planning tasks here, and they have a countdown, Sudoku, and tree planning. I just want to highlight the huge difference in Sudoku. For Sudoku, this makes sense. Sudoku is 3-on-3 grid of 3-on-3 numbers or something, right? Something like this. People have played Sudoku for a while. Diffusing Sudoku makes perfect sense that you will need to look at the whole kind of thing and plan itself like that. They are solving 81% of Sudoku, and the closest one between the ones that they've tested is Lada 8B diffusion, also a diffusion model, solves 46. and Quen 2.5. So they're solving 81%. I don't know if it's percent, but like 81 points. And 2.5 solves only 20%. So that's very interesting because Sudoku is numbers, but kind of text, but not. So that's very interesting. Tree planning, they have like also beating a score. So very interesting. As Yam just said, if you guys have GPUs that you would like to contribute to some of these efforts, these folks, reach out to Cheng Ye and we'll add the links to the notes and then just sponsor this effort. I don't think this is a commercial effort at all. I think it's just like some folks, correct, Yam? So like definitely very interesting. And we want to see the scale because we know that with scale, stuff come. And sometimes with scale, stuff appear that they haven't been trained on before, and then you can like then use this learning and then port it into smaller models, like we saw with the aha moment from DeepSeek. When they got to this aha moment, and they talked about this in a paper, and they spent a lot of compute to get there, and then suddenly people have replicated that aha moment with like under $50 or something. So definitely, if you're listening to this, if you're from a big lab that has GPUs and want to contribute, you have two choices. You can go and give them to Sam Altman that asks for more GPUs. I don't know if you guys saw this, or you can sponsor some open source efforts like this, like Dream 7B. The thing is, I added it under open source, but I haven't seen the actual model. I don't know, DJ Yam, if you guys see the model. I scoured their blog, and I don't think that they've released the model. So while we did put this under open source because conceptually it makes sense, I haven't seen the model yet. So it's not on Hugging Face. You cannot play with Dream as far as I saw yet. But this is a shout out to the team from Dream. If you're listening to ThursdAI, if you guys know them, tell them that we want these models in the open source. I think it's going to benefit the whole community. I think we've covered most of it. Yeah, now that you guys are here, we haven't covered the biggest thing in open source in an announcement. OpenAI is about to be, open. Let's talk about this. This is so exciting, folks. We knew about this because Sam Altman posted like a poll, if you remember, and asked if you want a mobile size model, or like the best performing general size, which I think we want both is the answer. And now, this week, Sam Altman actually posted about, hey, in the next 2 months, I think this is the quote. LJ, correct me if I'm wrong. In the next 2 months, we're going to release a state-of-the-art reasoning. I don't know if he said reasoning, but I think people conferred as a reasoning model as well. So OpenAI is about to give us some open source, folks. And they claim that they want to make this right. And so they're seeking feedback from the community, to which I tagged all of you guys, everybody who's on Thursday. I just tagged in the reply to Kevin. And so they're going to host feedback sessions, encouraging developers to sign up. So there's a form. If you guys are interested, I'm going to add this form to the show notes. LDJ, what do you think about this OpenAI?
Yeah, I think it's really cool. And I just wanted to correct, I think you said 2 months, but the tweet he put out, I think it just said few months.
Okay, few months.
But yeah, that still maybe could be in the next couple months or something.
From Kevin Vale, coming months. Yeah. So they're not super committed.
Yeah, so it's exciting though. I remember they put out that poll. It was, here I have the tweet, February 17th, they put out that poll. So like roughly a couple months ago. And I was wondering, like, after the poll results, it ended up saying that people wanted O3 mini basically. The options were, would it be more useful to do an O3 mini level model that is pretty small but still needs to run on GPUs, or the best phone size model we can do? And that's me reading directly from this tweet.
Sure.
And people voted 54% for the O3, like the poll result titled O3 mini, and people voted 46% for the phone size model. And we didn't hear anything about it for a few weeks, and I was wondering, are they just going to act like that poll never happened? But luckily, they're acknowledging it now, and yeah, it's cool.
I'm pretty sure that release is going to be tied to some huge Google breakthrough, like very close, like a day before. Maybe Google I/O. Google I/O is coming at May 2021. Yeah, we're going to cover Google I/O directly from Google I/O, by the way. Maybe a day before, if you guys remember last year, a day before Google announced Project Astra, which is like a multimodal, which, by the way, feels so common now. We all have this, like, we can talk to AIs, we can interrupt. A year ago, this was crazy. A year ago, this was like a huge announcement, like, folks, we have a multimodal they can watch, etc. And the day before, OpenAI dropped advanced voice mode and just showed us what's possible in this realm. So, like, a lot has happened this year. That's one. But two, OpenAI is very known at undercutting Google's releases, including the last Gemini 2.5, which is incredible. We still haven't talked about how incredible Gemini 2.5 is. We'll cover this in a second. A day before that, or the same, I think it's the same day, OpenAI is like, ta-da, native generation for images that we've talked about a year, and now we're like finally releasing this. And they broke the internet basically with Ghibli. So OpenAI loves undercutting Google, so we can assume that maybe when Google's about to release something super cool, OpenAI will have an open source release, which is like absolutely take over the airwaves. Jan, what do you think about this thing? And also the limitation that Sam said, that we're not going to do some silly stuff like limit this to under 700 million users, attacking Zuck directly, I think.
I think it's fair to say that everyone understands that it doesn't really matter. At the end of the day, if they release an open source model or not, it's not going to hurt their profits or anything like this. People are still going to use their services because the services are good. Going to use the products because the products are good. The API is managed and it's really good. So even if in the future they're going to go with even larger model or more sophisticated model, I don't think it's going to impact anything. Profits and so on, just like Google releasing Gemma and Meta releasing Llama and so on and so forth. That's it. I think it's absolutely great. All for it. OpenAI backing open source again. Very positive news. Absolutely.
We're very excited about this here, specifically because our focus is like strongly on open source. We start with open source every week. We barely cover OpenAI in open source. Sometimes they release some stuff like Paperbench, which we're going to cover in a second. But generally, we haven't seen any models from them, and we're very excited about this. So we're definitely going to cover everything. They're probably going to go live stream. Folks, we will let you know once you can use these models for sure. Let's cover the next and the last maybe in open source stuff from OpenAI as well, which is, you guys seen Paperbench? A new eval that they released, and I would love to chat about this because it's very interesting. Paperbench is a new benchmark, evaluation benchmark from OpenAI, which I will show in a second on the screen, that tries to replicate, evaluating AI's ability to replicate AI research. Yam, as an AI researcher, how does this make you feel?
Look, it's not easy to replicate AI. I think even if you're an AGI, it's not that easy to replicate AI research. I must say that I haven't had the time to read about everything that's going on every single day. I just didn't get to this one yet, but it sounds exciting.
That's why we're here. That's why we're here. Paperbench is a new benchmark from them. Agents must replicate 20 ICML 2024 Spotlight and papers from scratch. So
from the paper? From like you read the paper, you replicate the code, and how do you measure this? Like unit tests or something? Like verified unit tests? This is a hard benchmark, really.
They replicate the papers, and they have LLM-based judges to grade the replication attempts against rubrics, and they also have my favorite thing, which they assess judge performance by creating a separate benchmark for judges. So this is like a super cool effort from multiple angles. First of all, there's 8,316 gradable tasks on several things within the paper. They collaborated with the researchers from ICML with the papers to kind of try to figure out what would it mean to be better at this task, right? But also they have LLM as a judge to train on the outputs of these people to actually scale this up a little bit, because it's impossible. There's 8,000 tasks there. You're not going to sit a human and try to like solve all these tasks as well. The thing that struck me the most is that, first of all, it's open source. Not only that, they also released an eval framework called Nano Eval. So a bunch of open source from OpenAI here. And then they evaluated a bunch of frontier models on Paperbench. And the best performing tested agent is 3.5 Sonnet New. So not 3.7, not 3.5, the old one. We call this new Sonnet. 3.5 Sonnet New, which was released somewhere in like December or November of last year, with open source scaffolding, achieves an average replication score of 21%. So 21% replication score of an ICML 2024 paper that's done with an AI. And they recruit top ML PhDs to attempt a subset of Paperbench, finding the models do not yet outperform the human baseline, which sounds good. So this is open source. Folks are welcome to try this at Paperbench and on GitHub. The links will be in the notes as well. And this is super cool. It's a hard benchmark, and I applaud OpenAI for releasing a benchmark in which they're not the top. I think that's like super cool. That's applauded everywhere. LDJ, what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I think just all around cool and good progress that we're making here.
So absolutely great effort from OpenAI, and we welcome the open source as well. I will just say we will welcome the other open source much better than another eval. Another eval is always great, especially in the PhD, ML PhDs. So we'll definitely appreciate this, but I think we'll welcome the other open source much better. I think that now we're talking about OpenAI, we should move towards big companies and APIs because there's like a bunch of updates there. All right, folks, I think it's time for me to reset the show. We're exactly at 1 hour. We just covered open source. I love when we get to actually cover like a full hour of open source. And we chatted with Xing Yao from OpenHands and OpenHands about their new release model. We also chatted with Zach Nussbaum from Nomic about the Nomic state-of-the-art multimodal embed. So if you're interested in that conversation, that will be posted on the newsletter, the podcast, and actually on YouTube Live as well, if you're interested in that conversation. With that said, with an hour in, we want to tell you folks, thank you for joining. And we usually do multiple other categories. So we also need to talk about big companies. We have vision and video coming up. We may actually talk with some of the researcher from the Meta paper. Actually, I'm trying to bring them on. Until that happens, though, in the middle of Thursday, I usually talk about this week's buzz. This week's buzz is a category where I actually cover some stuff. Usually in this week's buzz, I let my co-host go and have a smoke break or whatever. Now this week's buzz is now attached with MCP stuff, and Yam, I know you've been getting into MCP, getting excited, and I know that our listeners as well. This is like a big thing, so I will absolutely love for you to just like tune in and listen to this. For folks who are listening in, this week's buzz is something that I specifically spearhead at Weights and Bias. I would love for you to hear what that's about. So let's get started. Let's do this week's buzz. Alrighty, folks, welcome to this week's Buzz, a category of Thursday where I talk about the things that happen in Weights and Biases. And this week, the things that are happening are things that I kind of push forward for. Because if you guys remember, we all got MCP'd March 6th. On the show, we had Jason Neen and we had Dina Kozlov from Cloudflare. And we basically just said, hey, folks, what is MCP? Tell us about it. And we're excited. And I basically wanted to translate this excitement to you and also tell you about why I think now that MCP is a very big deal. After getting MCP'd, and realizing how potentially big this could be. And then we saw multiple things happen. We saw OpenAI announce support for MCP in the Agent SDK and upcoming support in the ChatGPT app and the Completions API and the other API that I keep forgetting, the new one that they have. We also saw Sundar Pichai talk about MCP, and Sundar just posted to MCP or not, etc., something like this. We see an incredible adoption for this protocol, and basically we saw from Swix, our friend of the pod from Latent Space, a post on Latent Space outlining why MCP won. And after OpenAI jumping on and supporting this and like fully supporting this, by the way, in their eval dashboard, like everywhere, MCP is supported, they're going like full on into this. And then also Sundar is hinting support. Usually when the CEO asks, should we support something? The answer, they already been working on this for a while, like Sam Altman with the open source. So with all that said, that excitement translates into action, like this thing is real, this thing is here. For folks who have no idea what I'm talking about, MCP stands for Model Context Protocol, which is a standardized way of letting your agents or your chat apps get access to tools. And by standardize, I mean you have to write the standardization once, and all the tools that support the standard will be supported. Think about this as USB-C. That's the Anthropic way of saying this. The metaphor, USB-C for apps and tools. Basically, every tool that's built with MCP will be supported by every client that supports MCP. That's the concept. I like to think about MCP as HTTP for agents, because for folks who are developers, which is the audience that I want to listen in right now, you could technically have built the web on top of TCP sockets, but not until HTTP came and browsers came along with the text transfer protocol did we get the web. So I think that this is how MCP is going to be, because I think it's that big and agents are going to be everywhere. With that kind of caveat and like with that announcement, the thing that I've noticed super quick is that we at Weights and Biases build Weave as an AI LLM observability and evaluation toolkit, as I've talked to you multiple times before. Observability is the bigger part that as it concerns to MCP, specifically because there's this thing with MCP where right now before you use MCP, if you want to add tools to your code, to your agent, to your chatbot, etc., you just write them in whatever language you are, and you execute them together with your agent, which means you can observe them. You can observe what happens. The more folks will start externalizing their tool use, the more agents will start using MCP, the less observable the whole thing will become, because a lot of the execution will now happen somewhere else, in an MCP server, for example. This is not great. MCPs are great. The protocol is great. Standardization is awesome. But the more MCP is getting adopted, the bigger of a black boxes collection of execution you will have as a developer. This is not great. This is the part that I'm talking about. Not great. And not only not great for us as an observability platform, because we will be able to just give you less of a product that is useful to you. It's not great for you as a developer, because less and less you'll have the chance to debug something that you would be able to debug had you not used MCPs, for example. And for that reason, I started thinking about, okay, this is a problem that can be solved because MCP is an open protocol. MCP is hosted by Anthropic, and the folks from Anthropic are supporting this. But we saw OpenAI support this with whether had it not been an open protocol. Google is about thinking about joining as well. And so I was like, okay, we should talk about MCP observability and how this should look like and what this means and etc. And for that, I want to tell you that I'm starting a new initiative. I called it Observable Tools. This is an actual domain, observable.tools. If you go there right now, there's not going to be nothing super interesting because we haven't announced this yet. You guys on ThursdAI are getting a little bit of a sneak peek. So right now, Observable Tools, all it is a redirect. And this redirect is going directly to the Model Context Protocol GitHub, where a discussion about how this should work, a technical discussion about how this should work, exists. If you go there, it will redirect you to the GitHub discussion of MCP, the proposal that I wrote together with folks at Weights and Biases of how we think MCP should adopt observability. For many of you, this makes no sense. Many folks are listening, not developers. Maybe developers, they don't care about MCP. Maybe they care about MCP, don't care about observability. That's fine. I just want to tell you that for me and for us, it's very important that this exists. And for those of you for whom this is interesting, I would love for you to join the conversation on GitHub and to show by support, by giving a thumbs up, a star, show the Anthropic team that this is something that you care about, because this is how open protocols work. People suggest ideas all the time and they say, hey, we need this, we think this should be that. We went a little bit further than this and actually suggested actual implementation with diagrams, with how we think the protocol should change, with traces. I'm not going to go super deep into this, but I'm going to highlight a few points of how we think this should happen. Specifically, there's another protocol that's called OpenTelemetry. OpenTelemetry is a protocol that's been created with multiple folks also collaborating so that a company that does observability, for example, like us and some other company, once they support OpenTelemetry, a user can just switch to where they send the telemetry, the traces, the spans, the kind of the details about how the application performs, the observability details. They can just switch where they send them, basically just opening up this field. Many big companies, Datadog, all these companies, like OpenTelemetry is supported by multiple people right now because nobody wants to get share-locked into one company's solution and then get really stuck with them. So this is why OpenTelemetry makes sense. OpenTelemetry is also an open protocol, which means it's also a vendor-neutral protocol. And so basically, we saw that these two protocols have a beautiful conceptual connection together. Vendor-neutral supports LLM specifically, they're very helpful for user experience and developer experience. And so we suggest an OpenTelemetry support for MCP. This is basically what this proposal is all about. With that, I already see there's like participants in here. I would encourage you to go to observable.tools. We will post a manifesto next week. Look out for that. Don't want to show you a sneak peek, but I really do want to show you a sneak peek. We work on something super cool for the manifesto, and this will go live next Monday, so I'm not going to spoil the surprise, but please follow for this to join. I encourage you to join the discussion. I encourage you to also participate, give thumbs up, and generally help us let Anthropic know, and generally folks who work on MCP know, that this is something that we think is needed. This is something that we are very excited about, and we think that the developer experience will improve. There's also a thing about MCP security. Recently, Yam, I don't know if you saw this, but there's like a few posts about if you install MCP tools, you're basically giving them access to your computer if you're running them like locally. If you don't know what they're doing, and they could do a bunch of stuff. on your computer without you even knowing about leaking your secrets. Like there's a bunch of stuff that like in every new field is like scary. So we believe that observability is also good for security part as well. I'm very excited I'm leading this effort within Weights and Biases. I really encourage you as a community to just like join and participate and give comments and also discuss this and let us know, let Anthropic know how you think this should be happening. We haven't implemented anything, so this is like open discussion. Yeah, so this is this week's buzz. Another thing that I wanted to just briefly mention, that for some very interesting reason, also MCP related reason, I asked the community, I asked like a bunch of folks about how to, like, I just said, I'm a simple man. All I want in life is an MCP client that just like uses all the possible AIs and then lets me add a bunch of tools. And that post of mine went like stupid viral because apparently I'm not the only one who wants it. And so I just want to show you that the amount of folks that came in there and talked about this is just incredible. I haven't seen like that excitement about anything. Yeah. Jan, you probably saw this as well. I got so many pings from people, hey, if you're not going to build this, whatever, I'm going to build this. So I just want to show you that, yeah, almost 1.4 thousand likes and like bookmarks. So people are bookmarking this more than they're liking this because there's a bunch of solutions. Like 200 folks chime in there like with solutions, with ideas. I just want to tell you that I haven't yet seen a very good solution for this, but I will keep you up to date. I got DMs from multiple folks saying that they're working on something like this. So once we get something like this, something like an MCP local client that you can chat with local models, but also online models that supports MCP tools or toolboxes, which is the concept. I don't want to use Cloud Desktop, is what I said. I will let you know about some of these solutions once they come. All right, folks, I think that this was this week's buzz, and let's move on to big companies. So we're back from this week's buzz, and now we need to talk about big companies and APIs and different things that they have announced. And we will start with OpenAI as well, because OpenAI just had this great week. OpenAI announced a new funding round that we should talk about. Oh, this is a tiny funding round from SoftBank. $40 billion additional funding for OpenAI. That's a B, not an M. We're used to funding rounds like this for millions of dollars, and now this is like a $40 billion, valuating OpenAI at $300 billion valuation, which is insane because that's bigger than Coca-Cola and that's bigger than McDonald's. It's bigger than like multiple like decade-old companies, and this just kind of, for us, that's not that crazy, right? Like, we kind of see it. If AGI is coming, this is going to take over. ASI is coming after, this is going to like absolutely take over. They're building the frontier. Like to me, it's not that crazy. What do you guys think about this valuation run and like additional investment?
Yeah, I think it's pretty impressive, and I think surprising to at least some people of the rate at which they're like starting these new raises. I think it was just like less than 6 months ago that they announced like a $5 billion raise or something around there, right?
Yep. What, you mean $500 billion for Stargate?
No, even before that, like just a couple months before that, like specifically for OpenAI.
So they keep raising these funds. This one is from SoftBank, and I think that the excitement about the last updates with the image generation is highlighting how much interest is there. I've seen a few diagrams of how many people search for OpenAI, and the growth stagnated, and then now it jumped significantly up as well, probably because of the image generation. They are growing like crazy in India as well, enough so that Sam Altman posts images of him playing cricket. I don't know if you guys saw this.
Yeah, I just put the link to, I found it. So it was in October that I last raised 6.6 billion. And then now they have this 40 billion round. And Stargate, to be clear, the Stargate initiative, it seems to be set up as its own company technically. And I think they stated OpenAI has equity in Stargate, but it's technically not funding of OpenAI, even though it is basically OpenAI's compute.
Yeah. So in this announcement, they mentioned that 500 million people use ChatGPT every week. 500 million people. I remember last week we talked about 1 million people. That keeps growing. Sam Altman mentioned something crazy because of the image generation. He said when ChatGPT launched, they added 1 million people in 5 days. The first 5 days, they just onboarded new 1 million people in an hour because of this image generation, which is like just absolutely insane. And I love the fact that like when we started, I'll just remind this like for a second. When we started ThursdAI 2 years ago, I named myself AI evangelist because like you needed to evangelize AI. Now we're getting to a point where 1/8 of the world is about to use AI, if not already, like every week, which is absolutely insane. So shout out to OpenAI and the launch. I wanted to highlight this as well. I thought it's funny. It's not super crazy important, but this is the whole blog. 2 paragraphs. They raised $40 billion. The whole blog that talks about this is 2 paragraphs with basically no details. When they launch a research blog, is multiple pages long with a paper. I just found it funny that the number of words on the blog is proportionally opposite to how much money was raised, because $40 billion is absolutely insane. We saw another valuation of an AI company, by the way, this week. We should mention XAI has purchased X, which I don't know what it means, but because it's the same daddy for both companies in all stock. But basically, that transaction valued X at some like crazy amount, and also valued XAI. So XAI is now, I think, around. Do you remember? I don't remember exactly. I haven't written it down. But like XAI was also valued very highly, which is very interesting because I think I saw a post that means, what does this mean for Anthropic? And why is Anthropic not as valued as these two like other companies? So very interesting. We're getting like very high valuations for AI companies, AI foundation companies.
Yeah, I have the information here pulled up. It was in December, XAI raised $6 billion.
They raised $6 billion, and now post the acquisition of XAI is valued at, I think, at 80 or something. I don't remember exactly.
Yeah.
All right, folks, let's move on to other news that I want to talk to you about. We have Amazon Nova Act. You guys see this? This is crazy. Amazon announced Nova Act, which is their computer use agent, only via API. And they're flexing on top of Amazon. Amazon is flexing on OpenAI and Anthropic with this chart that they say that on multiple things like ScreenSpot, Web Text Eval, and Web Icon Eval, and then also Ground UI Web, they probably cherry-picked like these 3 because we know there's like a web agent evals as well. But on these ones, they're beating both Claude 3.5 Sonnet and OpenAI's Kua model, which is computer use agent model, which we know runs Operator. And we've talked about that being kind of the open state of the art. They're beating both the foundation labs with this model, with this Nova Act model. We talked about Nova as well. Nova is their kind of series of foundational models from Amazon. Nova Act specifically is computer use actor. And so very interesting. There's an SDK that you're able to sign up to get. I tried to sign up and I got 7 different captchas in the middle. Very Amazon, but fine. So it's not like an open model, but I find it very interesting that Amazon is like playing in this field. And then somebody told me like, hey, Amazon bought acqui-hired Adept. You guys remember Adept, the company that was started by some of the co-writers of the Transformers paper, and then recently went through some turmoils, didn't release a thing, promised us like a web agent, didn't release it, blah, 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 blah. Apparently, Amazon acqui-hired Adept. So this could be the result of the Adept, folks. So I haven't used it. I haven't seen anything. I don't know if there's any more commentary, but folks in the audience, if you used or tried this one, please let us know how this works. I want to highlight a few more things super quick before we move on to the vision stuff. And we actually have maybe a guest to join us afterwards on the vision stuff. Gemini 2.5. Let's talk about how good this is for a second. Gemini 2.5 was released 2 weeks ago. Doshi on the show from the DeepMind team. And she's the Google DeepMind. And she's leading the product for Gemini 2.5. Gemini 2.5 is incredible, folks. I'm very into this model. I've loved Gemini models generally. Gemini 2.5 released as a thinking model, as a unified thinking model, and it became my number 1 for multiple things. And I can tell you the things that I've used Gemini 2.5 for. I recently am very happy to announce that I finished filing my personal taxes. I still have corporate taxes to do for Torgum, but my personal taxes, which is for folks who are listening and not in the States, and like the normal government takes care of your taxes for you and you don't have to stress about this. You don't understand how stressful that period is. And you can hire a CPA, but it's still stressful. He asks you a bunch of questions like, oh shit, if I answer incorrectly, I'm going to go to jail. There's like a whole thing. And I've used for my taxes this time, and I did them myself this time like a dumbass. I used both OpenAI's O1 Pro, and supposedly the leading math supporting model. And this time I used Gemini. And Gemini is amazing because the context window is insane. And I don't know what they did in this model. I posted this and immediately deleted this video because I didn't want to expose my personal taxes to the world. But if you post your 1040, which is like the standard for taxes in the US, into Gemini, say, hey, review this. And then you open the thinking process of that. I imagine that this is how a CPA's mind works, because literally you can see the model just thinks about every little paragraph, every little box in the tax code. It is crazy. It tries to compare. There's like a bunch of math that you do. Never mind, I don't want to talk about taxes. It's horrible. Sorry for bringing this up. But the fact is, just seeing how this model thinks about taxes, and Google does expose the thinking traces, unlike OpenAI. Let's open them up, folks. Everybody exposes thinking traces. Come on, there's no more there. Google gives you the actual thinking traces of Gemini 2.5, and they're incredible. I sometimes ask a very difficult question, and I go to just the thinking traces, just to see what it thinks. I don't even care about the answer. And so an additional highlight of how awesome this model is, and you guys can call us Gemini shills, you can call us OpenAI shills. We are here to promote AI in a positive way. When it's good, we're going to tell you. When it's bad, like the refrigerator stuff from LG, we're going to also tell you this is good, folks. And to highlight how good this is on math, I wanted to show this thing where math Olympiad problems were released late March. So they're pretty held out. So there's not a lot of chances that releasing late March, the model was already trained by this. So we know the model trained, it takes a while. They're held out. They're so difficult that any score better than 0 is better than what 99% of the people is capable of. That's how one person on X described them, okay? Any score better than 0 is better than 99.9% of the people who read like general Twitter are capable of. So I want to show this chart. And for folks who are watching my screen, this chart is so high that I need to scroll through the chart to actually see the whole chart. This is an accuracy and date on the x-axis are dates from when this kind of USAMO was released, and then models that are getting some percentage. Most models on this very difficult benchmark, they get barely up to 5%. I think DeepSeek R1 is getting the closest to 4.76% on this USAMO. And then somebody measured Gemini 2.5 Pro. Folks, and the models are here are like O1 Pro on high. O1 Pro with high thinking. There's a lot of sequential tokens in there. There's a lot of like test time compute. O3 Mini with high. A lot of sequential test time compute. Cloud 3.7 with think enabled. Gemini 2.0 Flash, the previous thinking. DeepSeek R1. All of them get less than 5% on this benchmark. And here comes Gemini 2.5 Pro, and we can see how much Google cooked with this. And we can see why bringing back Noam for $2.5 billion, whatever, was worth it. Noam Shazir, the lead author on Transformers. Gemini 2.5 gets 24.4% on this super, super hard math benchmark. Just the graph is crazy. I just want to highlight this. If you still think that AI cannot do math, just look at this chart. Look at this MO thing. All right, so Gemini, it's generally great. Use it. Oh, and by the way, it's free now in the Gemini app as well. So you can always use it for free in the AI Studio. Gemini app itself, there's an app, there's a mobile app as well. Gemini 2.5 is now also on that app as well. Last thing that I want to chat about is this thing super quick in big companies' APIs without too much fanfare, without mentioning any type of other news that I'm not allowed to mention. CoreWeave and NVIDIA announced 800 tokens per second for Llama 405B on the new MLPerf 5.0, which is like an evaluation for GPU runs. With the new Blackwell Superchips GB200, there's a mess of like acronyms here, and I'm waiting for Nista to help me like wade through them. But basically, CoreWeave, the hyperscaler for AI, and that's backed by NVIDIA, like a bunch of other folks, announced that 800 tokens per second for Llama 405B, the bigger one. The chunky, it's not an MOE, it's a dense model. And then there's new results for H200 GPUs achieving 33,000, not 3,300, 33,000 tokens per second on Llama 270B, which is a 40% improvement on top of H100. Now, some of it is due to CoreWeave's getting the chips early. Some of this is due to the CoreWeave's infrastructure as well and some optimizations. I just wanted to highlight this insane number, 33,000 tokens per second. Like, what the hell? And I'm very excited to see how Llama 4, when it comes out, will perform as well. So I wanted to highlight these like insane speed ups for the new generation of NVIDIA chips. Yeah, any comments on this?
I feel the AGI. I don't know. I like this so crazy, seriously. There's nothing to comment. It's just I want to use it, pretty much.
All right, and if you do feel the AGI, I want to show you the OpenAI gave us a way to feel the emo AI. But basically, there's a black circle now in advanced voice mode in OpenAI, and that's called Monday. And when you talk to Monday, answers back, and it's emo, and it just like hates answering to you, and it's just so fun. I don't know if folks use this. I really want to try to talk to Monday. Monday, how are you?
All right, fine, here we go. Welcome to ThursdAI. I'm your oh-so-enthusiastic host, Alex, here to bring you the latest in AI. Today, we've got some thrilling or not news for you, from OpenAI's announcements to whatever else is on the agenda. So grab your coffee or don't, and let's get this over with. Ugh.
For some reason, this is so fun. For some reason, having an AI answers like an email, folks have leaked system message for it. It's just so fun to try and cheer this model up when it's just gloomy. There's no crazy stuff. It's just really fun. So shout out to OpenAI for this supposedly open April 1st Fool's trick, but essentially voice replaced Santa. If you guys remember Santa, this voice. I think we've covered the big companies, LLMs, and API in a good way, folks. Good job to us. And then I think we're moving on to vision and video. And I would love to invite Kong to come up to the stage with us as well. Kong that was working with Meta on Mocha. Once Kong joined, we're going to talk about this. Oh, Kong is right here. I also want to highlight the two things that happened in the world of vision and video. So for folks who are not watching, I promised this to let you know when. Now is when. So we'll start with Gen 4, and I'll show this on my screen. So if you are listening only and you want to look, now is the good time to look. Let's start with Runway. Runway announced Gen 4. And some of the videos are just like, they just keep getting like incredibly better. Flapping of wings and birds, like people are building like all kinds of things. I honestly, folks, I'm like running out of ways to like get excited about video models because they just keep getting better and better. In this case, this is like animated stuff that the Runway shows. It's just absolutely incredible. So we're seeing like all kinds of like cute felt animals, and I think they're highlighting the consistency there. Just absolutely great. Folks who are like using Runway, I'm like running out of ways to get excited about video models because they just like keep being insane. To the level of OpenAI that just released the native image generation, we're getting there with video models very soon. But the consistency in Runway is, I think, the highlight. I think people are used to judging whether or not something is an AI video by these three things that I at least judge the AI video ones. One, it's all shortcuts, very shortcuts. These models usually generate like very short form, maybe 5 to 10 seconds, and so like people cut. Two, consistency between frames is inconsistent. So the same character doesn't look the same in like the next frame, etc. They look a little bit different. That's how we judge AI videos right now. Runway released something that looks incredible, scene consistency. They're rebuilding worlds. So shout out to Runway for this. Now, the next thing that I want to chat about is OmniHuman. Do you guys remember OmniHuman from ByteDance? We talked about OmniHuman and we get super excited. OmniHuman is taking one picture. So you basically take one image, and OmniHuman from ByteDance has trained probably on all of TikTok, and it just generates incredible like life-like portraits. So OmniHuman didn't release. They announced like a paper, etc. They didn't release. But now OmniHuman is available. I wanted to tell you guys, but I'm like super excited. There's a website called dreamina.capcut.com. So this is like their AI playground. And OmniHuman lip syncing is absolutely available here now. And so you go to lip sync, and here's an example that I want to show you of me from last week. You guys remember we got excited about image generation from last week? Was that last week? Jesus. It was last week, right? It's crazy. Image generation came out a week ago. Gemini 2.5 came out a week ago. Like, it feels like a whole month has passed. Here's me animated and lip synced from one image. This is not video. This is one image. So I don't know if you folks can hear this. Let me see if I can actually show you the thing with the sound, because I think it's very important to see with the sound. Window. No, sorry. For sound, I need this. Yeah. Okay. Lumina. And let's see if you guys can see this. Yeah, you can see this. So here's a. Oh no, this is the thing that I don't want to show you yet. Okay, going back. This is a spoiler for next week. Okay, so I'll share it in the show notes, but I also shared it on X. Actually, I shared it on X. Hold on. So, technical issues, folks, but it's fine. We will get over them here. Let's go here, and then let's find. I want to just play this for you, so you'll hear. I'll train. So, OmniHuman animates from one image, and here's an example of it that I posted on my X somewhere here. Yes, we will say it was an insane week, and we have a few guests coming to talk about how insane. Let's jump into the TLDR because time is of the essence today, every Thursday, but specifically this week. So you can see the lips move, you can see the everything. They're not actually trained on cartoons specifically. Here's Tom like robots that build like with an actual human. Hold on a second.
And now I'm just floating around, I died again.
Look at the lips movement, it's crazy.
And I'm still in this town, it's not so bad.
I was just very excited to let you guys know that this is now available and you can try it. It's not an open source model, but you can do animated characters. You can do like a bunch of like very crazy stuff. In addition to this, another effort came out this week that I want to talk to the author of. So I want to welcome to the stage Kong Wei. Hey Kong, how are you?
Hey, Alex.
Thank you for hopping up. Very impromptu. You're listening to the show. You actually tagged me in some of the releases as well. You guys announced Mocha this week, right? Could you, first of all, welcome to the show. This is your first time, so feel free to introduce yourself, who you are. And then afterwards, let's talk about Mocha. I'm like very excited to hear from you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for the kind invitation. I really appreciate it. Hi, everyone. I'm Tong Wei from the University of Waterloo. And yeah, the Mocha project. I don't know how to pronounce it. Is it Mocha or Mocha?
Let's say Mocha, yeah.
Mocha. Okay. It was done like during my internship at Meta Gen AI and in collaboration with my supervisor, Professor Wenhu Chen. Mocha is like the first model that can generate talking characters animation directly from speech and text. Talking characters. So we define it as digital characters that don't just speak. They show emotions and natural body languages and act realistic really in video, just like human actors movie. And I think the most interesting part about Mocha is generating characters directly from speech. And so it doesn't rely on any auxiliary signals, such as traditional talking head models that only animate human faces.
I want to highlight this point for like just 1 second. What I just showed with OmniHuman and with Hedra Labs, they require an image and some audio, let's say. This is not that. You don't require an image, right?
Yeah.
You generate these characters from, where do these characters come from?
No, from the noise space, right?
From the latent space. You basically just bring them up to life, which is, I found incredible. Let's watch, I think we now can have with sound, let's watch like some of the examples of the launch trailer you guys have.
I said it before and I'll say it again. Life moves pretty fast.
Are you behind on your credit card bills? Good, pick up the phone and start dialing.
Oh, tired of him being gone.
For folks who are listening, some of these characters, like this character that we're watching right now, holds a cup of coffee and there's like a bunch of things happening, what I presume is New York in the background. People are walking. It looks realistic. This character that we're watching now is a woman in a sweater. She holds a cup of coffee with two hands and you can see the cup of coffee. First of all, kudos on the hands, man. What the hell? The hands look realistic. Like all the fingers are here, all the right amount of fingers. She holds the cup with the two fingers, but also like she talks and then she drinks from the cup. What is going on here? Tong, help us understand like what you guys cooked here, because this looks to me like crazy.
I don't know. It's just I would try this prompt and just saying, yeah, this woman is drinking while talking, and then we send the model speech. She's going to talk, and then we found this. The model generated this directly.
It's so good. It really, some of these that I walked through, like this specific guy,
Yeah,
they look so realistic. It's unbelievable. This looks like a scene from a movie.
Life moves pretty fast. You don't stop.
Folks who are listening, this guy is holding a cigar and
Life moves
the smoke trail follows the cigar perfectly.
pretty
This
fast.
looks,
You don't.
I don't think that if I show this to my mom today, my mom will be able to even understand that this is not real life. This is not was taken of a person. This is crazy. What was hard about this? Tell us about some of the work. Tell us about like how did you get this down and what is the kind of the implications of some of this work?
Implications?
Yeah. Tell us a little bit about challenges that you found. How was this trained? As much as you can. I know that Meta is not always open fully, but like you guys also published a paper. So give us some highlights for folks who are following.
Yeah.
How is this good?
Yeah, I can walk you guys through the promotional tweet. Basically, summarize the architectures and stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
Can I share my screen?
Yeah.
Sure. One sec.
I'll just give you a heads up. We love deep dives, but we don't have like too much time for a super deep dive, but would love to hear from you kind of some insights and some incredible things from training this model. And folks should absolutely check it out. We'll add this to the show notes as well because yeah. Can you zoom in a little bit, please?
Yeah, basically just four tweets.
Could you just zoom in, please?
This?
No, just go back and hit control. Yeah, like this is great.
Basically, this is the overall architecture. We project the speech and the text and also the video tokens. And then the whole thing is like a DIT architecture.
DIT is the diffusion transformer?
Diffusion transformers, yes. And we use self-attention for the video tokens and cross-attention for the text tokens. And also a window cross-attention. Basically, I'm going to describe it later in the next one. And the model directly generating the videos. And I think one thing to notice that the captions, the text prompt is pretty long. It basically highlights the camera shots and then...
For folks who are listening, we're watching like a text prompt, and the text prompt is a close-up shot of a woman standing in a modern house, speaking to the camera while facing straight ahead. She has shoulder-length dark hair. The background features sleek modern furniture. She holds a single rose in her hands, gently running her fingers along its petals. The static camera captures her face and upper body. So this is just describe the scene. There's no like text here. Text comes from somewhere else, right? It comes from the sound.
Yes, it's independent from the sound.
Yeah.
But it's pretty detailed. It captures the actions and appearance. And the next one is about the cross-window attention. Basically, we designed this architecture to align the audio tokens with the video tokens. So basically, we found that like the speech associated with like short-term films, right? And then the text associated with the Intel video. So basically, we introduced a strong inductive bias here. Like let's say for 1 second video token, it only associated to the 1 second audio token at that time. You should not look at other audio tokens. Yeah, that's the key here too.
When you say the speech and the text, you mean the prompt that describes
the
scene?
Yeah, the prompt to describe
the entire scene, and then the speech is like literally what it's about to say, and then the lips.
Yes, exactly. That's the key here for the Mocha to generate very accurate lip sync characters.
I want to highlight the lip sync is incredible. I've been following Field for a while, and I've looked at WAV to VEC and the lip sync and deep latent sync from ByteDance recently released very good lip sync as well. You guys are spot on perfect. I haven't seen any issues with lip sync that I could detect, which is very hard. I'm assuming this is because of data, because of something else. Could you speak about the lip sync stuff specifically? What made it so good?
Data could help a lot. These architectures helps a lot. And also, I think the data we use is higher quality. We do a lot of filtering. And also, we have training starting from data with facial regions. So the model can learn the lip sync quickly instead of training all the data labeled with audios together. Most of the data is not close-up shot. It's basically a medium shot, and the feature region is too small in the frame. It's harder for the model to learn, starting from just model a square image of the face.
Oh, so you're giving just like a square video of the face talking?
Yeah, exactly. Starting training from that, yes.
I want to show more of this, if you'll allow me. I want to show folks, because this to me is like absolutely incredible. Let me find a video. Yeah, you want to continue with one more kind of insight?
There's this one is talking about. We forgot to mention that Mocha can generating like multi-character interactively conversation.
Yeah, sorry about this. It's not only one character. This is like multi-character as well, which is like absolutely crazy.
Yeah, basically the speech signal can implicitly tell the model to switch the shot, switch the clip, and the prompt that we design like characters. Basically, we're using some tagging mechanism like person 1 and person 2. So basically, like person 1 associated for person with a certain appearance, and then also person 2. Then we describe the first clip and the second clip in this standard format. The reason we're doing this is because
I want to show an example. Go ahead, continue, but I want to show an example because the example is like absolutely crazy. The multi-character speak. Let's say, which one is your favorite? I like this one.
Yeah, this one's
good. It's the people who no one imagines anything of, who do the thing.
Oh, there's only one.
Yeah, there's only one. It's a bottom.
Oh, it's multi-character. Oh, turn-based dialogue. Okay, this one. Let's see.
You don't even know me.
I'll have the rest of my life to find out.
This is crazy. So you took, I'm assuming, sounds from movies. Like these sounds, like segments.
For the demonstration purpose. We're not using them.
Yeah, absolutely. But I'm saying like these are like very high produced, like quality.
Famous Bruce Wayne. Rachel's told me everything about you.
So we just heard like a little segment of the Dark Knight, probably.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
folks are sitting in a spaceship, which is like insane, and they're talking both turn-based conversations. Kong, I want to ask you about like why is it only 5 seconds? What's going on here?
The base model is only support 5 seconds, and as an intern, I don't have too much compute to train huge models supporting like 10 seconds or something.
I see. So is this just a function of compute, and generally the
Generally,
models can?
The method should work for 10 seconds or whatever length. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. What about consistency from like when I want to generate multiple things for the longer video? Is that possible?
I think it's possible because like it works for the 2-person talk, right? And I think there's like another demo, like I think in the website. I don't know.
Let's show this and then we'll move on to. We have one last thing to cover, but show me which one.
I think it's the third one in the first row of the.
This one?
Yeah, this one is actually you can see the characters shown.
Follow my own plan.
The characters show on the right side. The next in the second page.
Oh, the first character is shown from the back with the same coat and the same hair. You mean? Yeah, absolutely. This one actually is the one that I see an AI picture here. Like I see her face is moving weird. Some of them are like so realistic that I cannot discern, but this one I could like discern a little bit that this was like an AI. Anyway, Kong, thank you so much for coming up and talking to us about your effort here. Absolutely ridiculous that I can now fool my mom. Last maybe question here is, obviously this is a research preview. Any way we can test this, try this at some point in the future? Are there any plans for productionizing this? What folks that are watching this, will they be able to do generations like this going forward?
I think that's gonna require the approval from Meta. But personally, I can try to implement on some like open source models.
Yeah, if it's possible in open source and you need support in compute, and we have folks who are listening who have compute to support, follow Tong, I think you said, right?
Yeah, Tong.
Yeah, Tong, and follow Tong, and then please also let's have this in open source as well. This is crazy, folks. This is crazy. I encourage you to go to Mocha and check out some of the videos. Some of them just are absolutely ridiculous. Tong, thank you so much for coming up. Folks, we need to cover a few more things in the audio, and you're good. Okay, so folks, Mocha, definitely check it out. The next thing, and I think the last thing that we're going to cover, folks, for today, unless I miss some multiple things, is I want to show you or have you listen to the two things. Okay, so Mocha is unreleased. OmniHuman that I told you about is now possible in Dreamina website. And you can try this. But also, now with image generation from ChatGPT, I saw Olivia Moore from A16Z talk about Hedra Labs. And I want to show you Hedra as well. Hedra is also doing Hedra Labs. 1 second, please. Hedra Labs. Yeah, like this. What am I doing? I want to show you. I want to make it so you can hear. Chrome only allows hearing to tabs. Sorry, 1 second, please. So Hedra Labs also does animation for characters. And in order to show you what this means, I need to maybe go here. Okay, we'll skip Hedra Labs. I want to show you now Helio audio number 2. 1 second, please. We've talked about Minimax, the model, and the video models from Helio AI, and they have released an update to their voice models, and they're just absolutely incredible. I will try to play something for you because it's absolutely remarkable. But for some reason, the technical reasons don't let me do it. We'll generate something. Okay, here's an example. This one, lifelike speech. Okay, this is an example. They added authentic multi-language coverage. 99 vocal similarity is what they claim. 0 glitches in rhythm and studio grade quality. And then they also have like history management. So let's take a look. They have, and we've talked about these models before, and they generate like multiple things. But like speech 2 HD is just like absolutely crazy. You can say, "Hey folks, welcome to ThursdAI." Let's see if this works. Come on, generate. Of course, let me log in. 1 second, I'll log in and I'll tell you guys. Yeah, now it works. Generate.
Hey folks, welcome to ThursdAI.
First of all, right off the bat, this is one of the first text generations that said ThursdAI correctly without me having to spell it differently, right? But the thing is that they have voice modifier and they have emotions. You can have them say this with a happy thing. Thank you for tuning in every week. I now made them happy.
Hey folks, welcome to ThursdAI. Thank you for tuning in every week.
I'm like, they have a voice emotion right thing, and you can try like happy, you can try sad, let's try surprised with the same voice.
Hey folks, welcome to ThursdAI. Thank you for tuning in.
Anyway, they have emotion control. The thing that they have though that I love is voice cloning that is crazy good. It takes a while to do, and I'll just add it to the show notes so you guys will see. But basically, I cloned some voices with this. I've never, like 11 Labs, nobody comes very close to this. So I just wanted to highlight that this release was there. All of the stuff that we just talked about together come to this point where like everybody can create multiple things right now. You can go to ChatGPT, native image generation, generate whatever you want with any resemblance that you want. Then you can take this into multiple video models and now character models as well. So like Hedra and OmniHuman from Dreamina, you can lip sync those. You can generate any voice you want with any person clone you want, 99% similarity to a person. And then you can take all these and generate whatever you want, basically. And so I think this is a great place to stop our show at exactly 2 hours by saying that the creative space of what folks can do now with AI is incredible. And hopefully some of the tools that I mentioned to you are useful to you to go and generate and do whatever you want. Start with image generation, put it in Hedra, and then generate the voice max, which is absolutely, to me, state of the art in voice generation. Folks, with this, we're at exactly 2 hours for ThursdAI. I want to thank my friends here, LDJ and Yam, for joining me as co-hosts. I want to thank multiple guests that we had. You guys know that one of the funnest things that we get to do is talk to the researchers and developers of the things that they released this week. And this week we talked with Song just now about Mocha, which is an effort from Meta to generate movie-style quality characters that talk with lip sync. Chatted with Xingyao Wang from OpenHands about OpenHands releasing their own model that they fine-tuned on top of Qwen 2.5B, 32B, and that performs well. And also OpenHands, their open competitor to Devin, now is very close to the state of the art of agent generation, coding generation models. We also chatted with Zach Nussbaum from Nomic about Nomic multimodal embeddings as well. So always great to have expert folks that did the work to come and share the work on Thursday.
Have you seen Devin too?
Yes, breaking news.
Yes,
I don't know if
it's called
worth calling breaking news. Okay, one for fun. AI breaking news coming at you only on ThursdAI. All right, super quick, folks. Thanks to our community. Thanks, Yam. Devin was announced. Devin 2. Devin is the AI coding editor that folks got super excited about and then OpenDevin tried to replicate. They call this a new agent native ID experience. Are reacting. Oh, breaking news. It's generally available for starting at $20. Devin previously cost $500 a month. So this is now $20 for Devin. New experience lets you spin parallel Devins to take multiple tasks at once. Devin is a familiar VS Code environment. What else is interesting there? Collaborative planning partner. Start with the raw ideas instead of detailed R&D, PRDs. Devin search. Actually, $20 a month. I'll try it. Like, I haven't signed up to Devin for $500. It didn't do the work, as we know from our friends from Answer AI, but $20 a month is actually breaking news. Last but not least, each ACU now goes almost 2x as far. We measure ACU efficiency on an internal benchmark of junior dev tasks. So, folks, here you have it. Breaking news. Thanks, Yam. At the end of the show, Agent Native IDE from Devin, and they cut the price from Teams price for $500 a month to pay as you go, but $20 minimum. So minimum. It could go over. Okay, so just watch your billing, folks. Yam, thank you. Folks, with this, I think is a great point to stop the show. As always, if you missed any part of our show, please go to ThursdAI.news, all the links to YouTube, to Spotify. Folks, we're almost at 1,000 followers on YouTube. Please give us a follow on YouTube. We're almost there. It's very exciting. YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts. If you want any links of the show, the newsletter is going to get posted with all the links in the show notes. Probably today a little bit less of a full newsletter, but still with all the links of everything that we've talked about, basically all my notes converted into blog post form. If you missed any part of the show, and you want to support this podcast, the best way to support us is to share with a friend and give us 5-star reviews on the podcast platforms. It really helps. If you want to support financially, I never talk about this, but like the Substack, Substack is free if you don't want to, but if you want to support, Substack is possible to support financially as well. This helps run the show smoothly. But other than that, folks, next week I'm going to talk about observable tools. It's also a great way to support as well. Thank you everybody for tuning in from week to week. It's really a great pleasure of ours to host these incredible guests to talk about the work they do, to host all of you in the community, to give us like updates about everything that happened, and to keep us up to date as well. We here live on stage are getting up to date from one another as well, and hopefully this translates to you as well. With that, happy Thursday. Thank you so much for joining, and we'll see you here next week. Bye everyone.